Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you our speaker, Dr. David Puter. Dr. Puter started his pathway here with a Bachelor of Arts in Molecular and Cell Biology at Berkeley. He then took a very nice turn south to Loma Linda and graduated from the School of Medicine in 2010. So since he's one of our graduates, I feel the ability to brag on him just a little bit. He completed a residency in psychiatry and currently serves as the medical director for the intense outpatient program at Loma Linda Behavioral Medical Centers. So he's a known lecturer to medical students, to residents, and to faculty, and is gaining a reputation of being a very excellent one. He's a little bit of a Renaissance man. He was on the rowing team at Berkeley. He also, for all of you tech geeks out there, is an app developer and has recently developed an app on emotional connection. So he combined his interest in technology with his job every day, and it's an app that helps you recognize emotional cues in someone that you're working with. He also, I think the more proud thing we are, he's done a lot of service, and his class, the graduates of 2010, was one of the first to adopt a hospital internationally, and they adopted a hospital in Haiti, and it just happened that in that process of adoption, the earthquake hit, and he was personally very involved in some of the efforts in Haiti. In addition, he previously has served as a chaplain of Juvenile Hall in San Bernardino, and he's known as an advocate for his patients. So we're very happy that Dr. Puter is here, and we welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very grateful to have a chance to talk to you. 10 years ago, I was in one of your seats, and so it hasn't been that long. I was given a short white coat. It was more of a vest because I'm very tall. I remember the first 2 weeks being on the wards, and I was having dreams of running naked through a football game, and all of a sudden I realized I was naked, and everyone was watching me, and I had no idea what I was doing. Where were my pads? Where were my cleats? What am I doing here? And as I became a psychiatrist, of course, now I understand this. I was still having this, of course, in residency at times. But they're dreams of being an imposter. And when you enter into the wards, initially, you feel like you're wearing this white coat, and you feel somewhat like an imposter. Well, let me normalize that for you. It's very normal. If you feel the next 2 weeks like you're a little bit out of place, that's okay. You'll grow into it. I remember, I'm trying to put myself back into your shoes. I remember the first couple months. And, I went to Berkeley, so I was a little bit prideful. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to be that hard. And then I was like, oh, my God. What is this? Is the shoulder really that complicated? There was at least 1,000 things to learn about that. And that was only one lecture. So I started staying up later and later. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I would go to bed. And my body was in this like fight and flight sympathetic discharge. And maybe some of you can't sleep as well right now, preparing, thinking, getting ready for this, and that's okay. This is very normal. I was having this strong response, and as it went on, I started to develop this rash on my skin. It was about a quarter size, and it was itchy. It was like a papule type of thing, and I had no idea what it was. It stressed me out so much. I got a dermatology appointment, and this guy busted in the room and says, let me take a look at that. Oh, okay, what do you think we're going to have to get a biopsy. And I was like, a biopsy? And he leaves to leave the room, and I'm like, wait. What do you think it is? Like, what's your plan? Like, how long is it going to be for a biopsy to come? And he was like, you'll have to talk to the scheduling person. So I went out there, talked to the scheduling person. They're like, 3 months. I'm like, I cannot wait 3 months. this is Paget's disease of the nipple. I had looked in my book. I looked at all of the rashes, and I was sure that this is Paget's disease of the nipple, which, by the way, is a cancer for women. And I was convinced. I wanted a second opinion, so I went to another dermatologist. This guy comes in. You can tell he's relaxed. He's in no rush. He sits down. He listens to my story. And immediately I feel calmer. Immediately. And he says, oh, you moved here. It's really dry here. You're stressed. This is eczema. Here, take a little topical steroid. It'll be gone in a couple weeks. You don't even need to come back if it's gone. I'm that confident. The white coat bears associations, implicit, unconscious, that starts when you're really young. I know this because my daughter just found out I was a doctor. And she's 2.5, and sometimes we'll be at like a grocery store, and someone will look at her, and she'll point up and say, "Daddy, doctor." She watches a little cartoon with a Dr. McStuffin, and she walks around with her stethoscope. She has good memories of her pediatrician. Hopefully you have good memories of your doctor. And I think that over time, this grows like this sort of picture in people's mind that gets associated with a white coat. And so some people get nervous when they see a doctor. They develop hypertension. It's called white coat hypertension. It's a real thing. I learned it when I was preparing for this on a more research academic level. I won't pontificate about that, but about 100 years ago, doctors started wearing white coats instead of black garb. And they wanted to differentiate themselves because they were finding ways to actually help people. Other people wore black attire at the time, morticians and clergy. And so as doctors started wearing white, we're different, and we're here to help you. Antibiotics came on, antipsychotics came on, surgery principles were made sterile, and doctors really were able to help people very quickly. And I think the association with the white coat carries with that the years that doctors have been able to help people. And don't worry if you feel like an imposter. You'll grow into it. I wanted to share some stories about some patients, but before I do, I wanted to kind of describe my own growth. I think you can grow not only academically, but emotionally and spiritually while you're a medical student. For me, it required some good mentors. There's a mentorship program here. I was given a really fantastic mentor, Dr. Tom Denmark. I also pursued another mentor, Harvey Elder, my 3rd and 4th year. And I had some other really good mentors as well that I'll mention. I also had a church community eventually. I didn't start out with a good church community. I didn't belong to any church community when I first got here, but I found a really good church community, and that was very helpful. But what I did was about halfway into my first year, I had the chance to go into a juvenile hall and preach. And I went in, and I had such an amazing response, such an amazing connection with the people there that I decided to do it every week. And I found that there were things that I could preach on that people would resonate with. And immediately they would have this intense epiphany of the grace and love of a caring God. I would tell the story of the prodigal son. And I would tell the story, and I would really get into the details about how when the prodigal son, the son that had disowned his father, had taken half of his father's money, came back to his father, he's walking, he's downcast, and his father sees him in the distance, runs at him, embraces him, puts a cloak on his back, puts sandals on his feet, put a ring on his finger. The son is like, "Dad, I just want to become like a servant. And the father says, no, you have become a son. And it's this moment of this intense connection, and the father hugging the son, embracing the son, despite all of the son's disowning him, of all of the son's rebelliousness, the father embraces him. And then the father runs out to embrace the older son. And the older son is rigid. Dad, no, what? Come on, this guy, he took half of our house, he took half of our farms, you gave him half the money, he wasted it, and now you want to embrace him and bring him back into the family? I've worked for you all of my life. I've worked for you all of my life, and where is my party? No, I am not going to go into the party. And he stayed outside. Of course, when Jesus told the story, he was telling it to two groups of people, the people who knew that they were sinners and the people who thought that they had it all together. And the journey, the spiritual journey, is to move through being the older son and the younger son to becoming more like the father, and to embrace patience in their lies, in their drug abuse, in their alcohol abuse, in their inability to take our medications, in their rejection of our advice, to continue to run at them and embrace them and to choose to extend grace and not what they're expecting. They're expecting judgment. They're expecting shame. And we can choose to embrace them. I had a patient who was a Vietnam vet. I was a third year. He had new onset diabetes, and he comes in to the medical ER, and in part of the history, he tells me that he hasn't slept for 20 years. And for 18 of those years, he's been a heavy drinker. He got sober 2 years ago when his wife finally left him. And he still can't sleep. He gets up multiple times, and he checks the locks, he checks the doors, he has nightmares. And I ask him about his nightmares. And he proceeds to kind of look at me with a little bit of hesitancy. But because I'm playing the role of a doctor, he tells me. He's never told anyone else before. He's never told his wife, his best friends. But for some reason, he feels like he can tell me. It's a privilege to hear. And he tells me this story about how there were a couple. But one of them was he was in this firefight, and one of his buddies got shot, and he ends up giving him morphine and gives him some more morphine because he's yelling, and then he passes away. And he felt like he had killed his best friend. And he was living with this incredible guilt, incredible shame. And another one was he was in a foxhole, and he saw someone coming at him, and he shot, and it ended up to be a child. And he had this incredible guilt. And I told him the story of the prodigal son. I told him that story. I told him, this is a guy who was Catholic, but he was, very distant from the church. He hadn't been to the church for years. And I told him the story of the prodigal son, and he wept. We prayed, and he felt like this release. I felt it too. It was like this weight just, whew. And you're in a little bit of a disbelief at this point. I was. And so I came back an hour later, and he was like on cloud 9. This guy was like on something. He seemed so happy. He was like, I am in heaven. You have no idea. I'm like, okay, I'll see you in the morning. I'm skeptical at the same time, right? And so I show up in the morning. I'm like, how did you sleep? I had to wake him up. He said, I slept fantastic. I came that afternoon. He was still sleeping. How are you sleeping? Please don't wake me up. I just want to sleep. I came the next day, woke him up. He had slept well. And I said, I was still in disbelief after a week. I said, can I call you in like a month or two to see how you're doing? Called him. He said, you know what? I've been sleeping fantastic. I've been trying to get back together with my wife. She's actually listening to me for once. And it was this moment of like, wow, this is amazing. Do I get to do this for the rest of my life? I would do this for free. I would do this for free. I have many of these stories. I could go on for a long time. I wanted to touch on a couple things, though. To move from fear into a place of awe, creativity, curiosity, gratitude, connection. To move from fear into those places is something you can practice every day. Because you will be opening your textbooks, you'll be thinking about the tests in the future, and you can choose, do I ruminate on these tests, right? Or do I think about how beautiful this stuff is that I'm learning? How amazing is this opportunity to sit and learn and just soak this stuff in, that someday I would be able to be like the father, like the prodigal father, and be able to embrace patience. How amazing is this? And I think we can change our mindset a little bit, and then immediately the rash goes away. Immediately, I don't need to stay up till 3, I'm going to bed at 10. Immediately, I'm in a very different mindset, and it's wonderful. Okay? So the mindset, the things that we think about while we're studying, in between studying periods, can change our trajectory. I learned from my Adventist friends, I'm not Adventist, resting. There's this idea of resting on the Sabbath. I appreciate a cyclic rest, and I highly recommend it. You cannot study 7 days a week. You will be like me when I first got here. We can also move from self-orientation to other orientation. For me, that was a journey to Haiti. I went there just wanting to explore the world, get some surgery time, experiment, with life and culture. And those are good reasons to get you over there. But once you're over there, you'll find these amazing people. Loma Linda grads, a lot of them. I worked with Scott Nelson. He's a pediatric orthopedic surgeon here. He still goes to Haiti quite frequently. And you could feel like this guy really cares about each individual. And he's dedicated his life to this. And it was almost surprising to me. And so slowly this sort of self-orientation, which I think is very common in our culture, can shift to another orientation. And as a class, we decided to adopt this hospital in Haiti. And I had the pleasure of going over there a couple times. Dr. Hadley came with us one time. Dr. Hart, the president of Loma Linda. I mean, where do you get the dean and the president of Loma Linda, the president of all the hospitals, all the schools? They're like, okay, we're excited about what you're doing. We're going with you. I don't think you get that anywhere else but Loma Linda. Because here we have different ideals, right? We have ideals that are transcendent. So the shift from self-orientation to other orientation can be how you interact with your classmates. Be a class that claps for professors. Be a class that shares information. Be a class that says, you know what? We don't need to be competitive with each other. We're in this together. And trust me, you will be in this together. There's something about medical school which is amazing. It'll bond you together in ways you have no idea. You won't have talked to a classmate after you graduate for 2 years, but then you have an eye issue, and immediately you have a doctor who's an eye specialist. True story. I was like, what? 3-minute wait for this? I mean, 3-month wait? I was like, can you just tell Howie that I went to school with him and see if he can see me real quick? And he did, immediately. Closing remarks. Of course you will have some fear. That's normal. You will have some feelings of being an imposter. We can choose connection. We can choose connection with our classmates, with our spiritual traditions. We can choose connection with how we choose our ideals are someday to practice medicine. And we can hold those ideals tight. And those beliefs are really powerful to carry you through. The meaning that is created in that, the connection, that someday you will have with your patients is fantastic. So thank you, and congratulations.
Before God, these things I do promise, in the acceptance of my sacred calling.
I will dedicate my life to the furtherance of Jesus Christ's healing and teaching ministry.
I will give to my teachers the respect and gratitude which is their due. I will impart to those who follow me the knowledge and experience I have gained.
I will give to my teachers the respect and gratitude which is their due. I will impart to those who follow me the knowledge and experience that I have gained.
The wholeness of my patient will be my first consideration.
The wholeness of my patient will be my first consideration.
Acting as a good steward of the resources of society and of the talents granted me, I'll endeavor to reflect God's mercy and compassion by caring for the lonely, the poor, the suffering, and those who are dying.
Acting as a good steward of the resources of society and of the talents granted me, I will endeavor to reflect God's mercy and compassion by caring for the lonely, the poor, the suffering, and those who are dying.
I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. I'll not use my medical knowledge contrary to the laws of humanity. I'll respect the rights and decisions of my patients.
I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. I will not use my medical knowledge contrary to the laws of humanity. I will respect the rights and decisions of my patients.
I will hold in confidence all secrets committed to my keeping in the practice of my calling.
I will hold in confidence all secrets committed to my keeping in the practice of my calling.
I will lead my life and practice. I will lead my life and practice my art with purity and honor, abstaining from immorality myself. I'll not lead others into moral wrongdoing.
I will lead my life and practice my art with purity and honor, abstaining from immorality myself. I will not lead others into moral wrongdoing.
May God's kingdom, his healing power and glory be experienced by those whom I serve. And may they be made known in my life in proportion as I am faithful to this oath.